So, this is a format that you may not have seen in a long time, but we are bringing it back around.
We're at the table.
From the news desk.
There you go.
We have our notes.
I like how we do this with one piece of paper.
I'm shuffling.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really get a chance to wrap up our thoughts on our experience at Sesame Place. So I thought it would be good for us to, we took a couple notes on how we felt. It has been a few weeks since we were there.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. We went at the end of June, and it is now beginning of August. So it's been a while. So some of these things might be different if you were to go now or in the future. But these are just our thoughts.
Right.
Just some information that we gathered since we went into it not really knowing much about Sesame Place.
Right.
And so we figured it'd be beneficial for other people too.
Yeah.
Who've never been.
Yeah.
So.
And also, obviously we've only been there this one time, so whatever we experience might not be what you experience on a typical day.
Right.
It's just what we happened to have,
right.
When we were there. So.
And I also want to preface, have I said this already? Preface. I feel like I keep saying preface. I want to preface this little talk with the fact that the kids had an amazing time. And overall, we also had a great time. We had a lot of fun. So I don't want anyone to think coming into this and listening to this when we have some negative things to say about our experience that we didn't have a good time or that the kids didn't have a good time. The kids had a great time, and that is really what matters.
Right.
So all of this is just like little stuff that we notice from a Disney regular perspective.
Yeah.
So we might be a little biased because we love Disney, but that doesn't mean that if you were to take your kids or your nieces or nephews or whatever to Sesame Place that you wouldn't have a good time. I mean, clearly I bought the merch. I had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
that's one of the things that we definitely discussed towards the end was, after the whole experience in the park, we still realized that the kids were having a great time. And that's, the whole point is if the kids don't notice if anything's going wrong, but they still have a fantastic time. I mean, that's the whole point. That's the point of the trip. So
exactly. Yeah. And Sesame Place is all about the kids.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, they do that well.
Yeah.
So before we really dive in, I did want to let everyone know that the day that we went, we paid $76 per person for our ticket. And this is the price for everyone, so children included. Some other theme parks might have a child rate. Sesame Place does not. So you will pay the full price for everyone over 23 months, I believe. 23 months and below get in for free. Was there anything else I needed to say before we jumped into that part?
23 months. That's under 2 years for the lay person.
Yeah.
Anyone
They said 23 months on the website, so I felt like I needed to say that. We noticed that the theme park has not only, we mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but that they have the theme park area and the water park area, and we were under the impression that the water park area was its own separate part of the park.
Right, well, we didn't know anything at the time, but you would assume a water park would be the water park.
Any place I've been, any theme park that I've been to that has, even Six Flags, that has a water park section, it's in its own area. At Sesame Place, the water rides are integrated throughout the park. So you'll see a lot of guests just in their swimsuits walking around, sometimes dripping wet, getting onto the attractions, which is fine if you are there to experience the water park. And I guess that's what that ticket price includes, is also access to the water park. Right,
which we didn't take advantage of at the time. We didn't really feel like we needed
Our
to
kids
do that.
are not strong swimmers right now, so we didn't feel comfortable, but maybe next year. But that was something interesting to note, is that you may be getting on rides with people who are wet from the water rides. The rides might be wet when you sit down or whatever.
Right, or just a bunch of guys without their shirts on because they just got off the out of the
that
water.
was not that it was not that we're prudes or anything, but
prudes.
It was interesting that Disney, I believe, requires, I don't even think you're allowed to wear a bathing suit at Disney, right? So it was just sort of it's
different. Yeah. very different.
We also noticed that a lot of the rides are kind of like your basic carnival ride or ride you would see at a boardwalk, for example. They had like the Dumbo type ride that you saw in the video, but the Dumbo type rides, the swings,
the carousel.
The carousel.
Like, even though like a lot of this stuff we do have at Disney, but it feels, I don't know, it feels different at Disney. Here it kind of felt like with the well, we'll get into this a little bit more, with the crowds of people and with the types of rides that were kind of together, it did definitely feel more boardwalky. Like you were walking down the boardwalk and you came across each one.
Right, because the theme is Sesame Street, right? Obviously, that's the theming. But in Disney, there are separate lands, right? So, like, maybe you'll have the Dumbo type spinning ride, but it's themed after Aladdin because you're in Adventureland or something. So, like, here you're just going from attraction to attraction to attraction, and there's not necessarily like different lands and different themes. It's all just Sesame Street, which is the point.
Yeah,
which is the point. But that's what kind of brings in that boardwalk carnival type feel, I think. Do you want to talk about like the crowds and what we noticed?
Right. So obviously it wasn't early COVID times that we went. So, you know, it's starting to get like more places are opening up and, you know, they're allowing more people to come into places like theme parks and things. So that might have played a little bit into it, that people were excited to be able to go back to Sesame Place. I don't know if there were like full restrictions or anything before that. But it did seem like there were a lot of people in a lot of areas. There wasn't like, you know, Disney does well where it gives you a lot of open space that you can kind of spread out and do all that sort of stuff. But here in Sesame Place, it didn't really feel like people had built it with big crowds in mind. So there are places like, for example, near where we had our lunch, where it's just like a thin hallway right next to the opening to get inside that place where you have lunch.
And also next to like some of the only restrooms that we found while we were there.
Yeah.
So you had 3, and also it was like a main walkway to some of the bigger attractions.
Right.
Right. So you had your food area right around lunchtime, attractions, and the restroom, all in this tiny, and stroller parking.
So it took up half of the actual walkway.
Right.
So all these major things that people will be going to are all stuck and shoved together in one spot. So there was a huge bottleneck right there, just like right off the bat, and just tons of people all close together and, you know, trying to shuffle past each other.
And remember, it's June. Yeah. It's hot. We had just had a rainstorm. Mm-hmm. It was humid, and people are hungry. And so, you know,
midday.
People are not like the friendliest or the happiest at that point, and people at Disney are also not the friendliest and happiest during that point either. So I totally understand that. But it does make for an uncomfortable situation, and it's not like and you know, okay, so you have to think that like Disney thinks about all these things about the guest experience, and we find plenty wrong with Disney theme parks, and things that could be better. But for their organization, that spoke and wheel, what is it? Wheel and spoke, or I don't know if I'm saying it right, but you know what I mean. You have the hub, and then you have all the lands around it, right? You know, he thought about that. He thought about trying to spread people out throughout the park instead of being like, well, we'll just stick bathroom here and the lunch place here and strollers to the park.
Even that, like, you know, having bathrooms placed periodically, even like down to the trash cans are placed periodically. So like this bathroom was like the bathroom of the whole area over there. So it's like, of course, everybody would need to go there. And it was also
a changing station for like getting out of your wet bathing suit. They had like changing rooms in there too.
And also was the bathroom for if you were eating at the restaurant.
There was no bathroom inside the restaurant. So yeah. So anyway, we felt like it was very crowded, especially like fresh out of COVID kind of at the time, where like we had just learned that you didn't have to wear a mask if you were vaccinated. So it was just, you know, it was a lot. It was sensory overload, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's what it is.
All right, so before we get into the actual attractions and how that all works, as we mentioned earlier, we were with children who have mobility issues and disabilities, so we required a Disabilities Pass. which if you're familiar with how Disney approaches this, you go to guest services, you say, that you have a disability that requires this pass. You have it linked to your Magic Band, and everyone else in your party can also be linked. I forget if it's like up to 8 people or something. I forget. I think there might be a limit. But anyway, it's pretty simple. At Sesame Place, we went to guest relations.
Right.
And it was not the right place to go.
Well, and guest relations is the first thing that you see, like walking right past security.
It was outside.
Guest relations is right there.
Before you even scan your ticket. So then we were like, okay, went through security, went through the tickets, and it was called the Welcome Center.
Right, which is around the corner.
Right.
Yeah. So we had to go through the line to guest relations for them to say, oh, no, that's the Welcome Center. And
we weren't the only ones with children who had disabilities that needed this service,
right.
And they were all in line with us.
Yeah,
and they kept having to turn them away. We were like, oh, okay.
We all went through it.
So we ended up at the Welcome Center, which was the correct place. Unlike at Disney, you need to have an accessibility card detailing the disabilities that you have that require you to have this special pass, right? And so the card that we have is called the IAC Accessibility Card. It's from the IBCCES, who helps with autism certification and travel and things like that. And you can find them at accessibilitycard.org. I believe you have to provide certain information, certain documents in order to get the card. I believe there's even a picture. You provide a picture of your kids, whatever. It's very formal.
Yeah. And
at Sesame Place, they required certain information about, are they able to sit up on their own? Are they able to hold their head up? Are they able to walk a certain amount of feet to get to, attractions or whatever?
Yeah, it wasn't a quick in and out. They asked a lot of questions.
No, yeah, it took quite a while. When we finally did get the card, there were certain rides that one of our kiddos was unable to go on because of his mobility issues, and other rides that the other one could go on because she's has more mobility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but the way it works was that we got a punch card, and it allowed for 6 passes to skip the line, right? It was 6 passes to skip the line. And then once you used up those 6, you were done. So it was really only for 6 attractions. And you, instead of at Disney, you would go through the fast pass queue, or you would get like a return time to come back and then go through the fast pass queue. Here, you showed your punch card and you lined up by the exit, and then they let you in and they punched your card, and that was that.
Yeah.
Because one of our friends was really limited on what attractions he could go on. I think he literally could go on 1 or 2.
Yeah, maybe.
Attractions. He only ended up going on 1 attraction the entire day. We used the rest of the punch card for our other friend. So she ended up having 11 passes or skips, whatever, available to her. And you could also only bring 2 other people on the attraction with you with that card.
Right.
So we noticed when we were in line for the swings, this family of like 8 wanted to get in with with their child's card, and they said, no, you can only have 2 people at a time. You can't have the party of 8 all go together. They were really confused by that. Yeah,
right, yeah.
Whatever.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, it was fine. It ended up working out fine for the kids in the circumstances that we had. It was disappointing that our one friend could only go on 1 or 2 rides. So we paid $76 for him to come in, and he could only ride 1 ride.
Right.
It's also disappointing that if, say, we were just there with our other friend, she could only get on 6 attractions without having to wait in line.
Yeah.
And I understand that some people try to play the system and say, oh, no, I have a disability, when they really don't. But it's clear that these 2 children are not trying to take advantage of the system. We're not trying to take advantage of the system. They legitimately need this. And it's sad that their time has to be limited. And so, for example, the carousel, we decided, we're like, no, we don't want to use our skip for the carousel. Because we want to save them for rides that might, have a longer wait or something.
Right.
So we ended up waiting in line for that, and it was really, really hot. There was no shade.
Right, no coverage in that line at all.
So luckily we had our umbrellas and we could shade everybody.
I know. That's the first time we've ever really used umbrellas for shade as opposed to blocking the rain.
And it was great.
It was fantastic, yeah.
But it's stuff like that where it's like our one friend cannot handle the heat very well, and so he was miserable, and it was like, I wish it had been unlimited, especially for him, so that we could have used one of his skips to get him on the line.
In the line.
So obviously I'm not an expert. My friends are the experts. They're the ones that live with this every day.
Right.
So I'm gonna link my friend Abby, her information down below. If you have questions about accessibility passes, about the card, about what it's like to travel or to bring children with disabilities to theme parks, because we are going to do more theme parks with them.
Right.
Hopefully one day Disney, but also we have Dutch Wonderland quoted or slated next. But we're probably also going to hit a bunch of other ones too in the future. She's the one to really talk to. I can just only give my perspective as a person who's just traveling along, but they live this every day. Right. So, I will link her information down below. You can reach out to her with any questions.
So, just two things I wanted to mention. One, this is kind of a nitpicky thing. When we were in line to get their passes and have all the questions and everything, there's no real place to put your wheelchairs or anything. We were just kind of stuck in line. We couldn't really go anywhere. So, while they're in there asking questions, the space is only really big enough for 2 people to stand basically in front of the counter. So it's kind of hard to maneuver that. The other thing was when we can't. What time do you think we arrived?
I think 11.
11. So we got there and we had disability. We asked for van accessible parking.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and it turned out that by 11 o'clock, there was no more availability for van accessibility. And the main parking lot there has nothing marked for, vans of
we needed
sort.
An actual van spot, not just a handicap spot, because we have the
ramp comes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having to pull all the way up to sort of you see in the video, I think, we have the big tents while it was raining. So we had to pull the car up to there, right next to the entrance, drop most of the people off, and then find a parking spot further back in the parking lot. So it might fill up.
And as we're there, Abby's like, "This is illegal. This is illegal," and it is. I mean, the fact that there was no accessibility. I mean, what if you're the person that you're driving the van and you need you can't drop yourself off and then park your car So that was a really good point to bring up. Yeah. So if you do have particular needs, I guess you have to get there early, but that is kind of crazy.
Right.
I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
One other thing that wasn't a great thing.
That's a very nice way to put it.
That we all noticed because we're all Disney regulars. The loading system. Loading onto the rides was a complete disaster. That's putting it lightly. I know that when I'm at Disney and I have the cast member say, "How many in your party? How many in your party? How many in your party?" 3 times. And I'm like, 2. Okay, there's 2 of us. Why do they keep asking me? There's 2. I now know why. I now know why they ask a million times. Because they're preparing and counting how many people they can load onto the next...
into the next iteration of whatever, next vehicle, next.
Right.
Whatever,
I'm for some reason picturing alien swirling saucers. You know how they then put you on the star. They're like, okay, we can have 12 parties. 12 parties can line up and get on a star, and then you're going to go in. And that makes loading so fast. I mean, we've been spoiled. We get on, we're strapped in. Maybe it takes 30 seconds, and the ride's going, and you're on and off.
Yep.
Sesame Place loads 1 party at a time. So you go up. Say, okay, I have 2. They're like, okay. You go in, you sit down, you get buckled in. They're like, okay, I guess I have room for some more people. How many? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
They sit down, they buckle, then they check, and they're like, all right, I guess I still have room. Now, this this takes a good, I mean,
it's
it felt
15
like,
minutes every
I don't
time.
know, I don't think it was 15.
No, it felt like 15 minutes every
especially
time.
when you're waiting for the ride and you're on.
Right.
And you're like, okay, when's it going to start? I have my kid buckled on a horse now for like 5 minutes waiting for the ride to go.
Right. Or even, it felt like, so when you rode on the swings,
Yeah.
it felt like people got on and then they checked everybody and then said, oh, there's room for more people got on, checked everybody again, and it's like there's no streamlining to this process.
It's not streamlined at all.
Yeah.
Oh, and I also wanted to mention, going back to the Disabilities Pass, the team members or whatever they're called seemed to have no idea what we were talking about. Like, we would go up and be like, hey, is this the line for the Disability Pass? They're like, what?
Yeah.
But like, the Disability Pass to skip, they're like, oh, yeah, I guess you could wait here. Like,
right.
they didn't seem to have any idea. And then at one point, our one friend who has a leg brace, we were getting onto the swings, and one of the rules is that you can't have a cast to get on the swings.
A cast, right.
A cast. Her leg brace is not a cast. It's a brace to help her walk.
To help her walk. It's, yeah.
She needs it, right? And so it was a whole debacle. They had to like ask people like, well, is she allowed to get on? And finally our friend Abby was like, she could take it off. She just can't like walk without it. So then I had to carry her to bring her onto the swings and carry her off, which wasn't a big deal, but it was like, how do you not know the difference between a cast and a leg brace? Or how do you not know, especially Sesame Place that what's the word I'm looking for? Says
Touts.
It's, yeah, is that the right word?
Touts,
That's what I wanted to say, but it seemed like a fake word.
No.
Touts itself as like being so good with kids with disabilities, and then their team members seemed to have no idea what we were talking about.
Now, granted, this poor girl who had no idea, after the ride, she did come up to you guys, and she felt terrible.
She's like, was she okay?
Yeah.
Was everything all right? I was like, yeah, she was fine. Like,
But
it's not a big deal. But
in the
still.
case of other rides where we had to go up, I mean, we did. She did like the spinning teacup thing.
Yeah.
And they had no clue and had to have us like show them all the papers and everything. And, like,
every time we went up, we had to have like all of her paperwork and her card and whatever. And it was like, how do you not know what's allowed on these rides?
Between that and the loading situation, it really honestly felt like the whole group was new. Like nobody really knew.
Yeah, and
they only knew how to run the rides. But
maybe this was like a fresh summer crew, But yeah, it was rough. It was rough. So anyway, that's that.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then one last thing, and I think the rest of it are mostly positives.
We're getting all the negative out of the way. Here we go.
And then we can end on a high note. The food, it was theme park food. It's typical theme park food that you would expect. Chicken nuggets, cheeseburgers, mac and cheese, hot dog.
The place that we ate, were there different food options?
There were, yeah.
Okay, well, so do we know what it was called? It was like the Cookie Monster or something.
Yeah,
Cafe or something.
I'll say what it is like above our heads when I look it up.
It was like almost like half buffet style, kind of like where you would go up to the like window where they're making food, and it's like a cafeteria where it has all the bars across and you pick up your tray, but they just make all the different kinds of food, place it in the designated spot for chicken fingers or for cheeseburger, and you go up and you grab the plate of whatever one you want. So you don't really order from a menu and then they make it they just are constantly churning out whatever's there.
Right. So you don't order, you just pick it up and then you pay for whatever you get,
grab,
which is different than Disney.
Right.
And it also took a really long time.
Yeah.
Like I think, not to mention, I mean, it was lunchtime, but we were again out in that hallway by the bathroom. And it took a really long time just to get into the restaurant. And then we had to wait, like, in a switch back just to get to the food. And they had, like, 2 cashiers working. And the food, I mean, wasn't terrible, but it's your typical theme park food. So don't expect anything, like, special.
Right. And I mean, granted, it happens to like this at Disney sometimes, too. But it did feel like, we got in line and then the two of you went off to try and find seats. And it felt really crowded. And you eventually found seats upstairs.
Yeah.
But
we had 2 kids in wheelchairs and had to take the elevator up.
Right, the elevator, which was a very interesting experience in and of itself. But.
And they do have some like vegetarian options. They had like a a Beyond Burger, I think, or something like that. So they had a couple different things. But yeah, don't expect anything amazing in terms of food.
Yeah.
They were doing meet and greets, similar. I don't know if I would say similar to Disney, but similar to Universal in the way that they had the characters on stage,
right?
And then you walk up and you get your picture taken like in front of them.
Yeah.
And there's some interaction there. You can wave and stuff like that.
Well, it's like if Stitch or Buzz come out on Rocket Tower Plaza.
That's
that kind of thing.
Yeah. So they are still doing their meet and greets inside of like a stage area.
Right, but kind of controlled. Even the characters were separated from each other. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So overall, I mean, we found that it was great for younger kids. We also found that it's a great way to introduce kids to theme parks.
Right.
These kids have never been to a theme park before.
This was their first,
This is their very first theme park, their very first experience with rides and things like that. It was a perfect way to introduce them.
Yeah.
Was everything perfect? No. But it gave them the chance to watch the rides, figure out what they wanted to try, and try it out. And at the end, they loved it. They had a great time.
Right.
We realized that our one friend is a daredevil and wants to go on every single ride, so that's a little scary. There was one attraction that was terrifying.
Yeah. Did I get footage? I did.
You did. Yeah. I could put it in above this, but it was so scary. And she was like, I want to do that. And we were like, ooh. And none of... She wasn't tall enough to go on by herself.
Right.
And none of the adults wanted to go on it. Like, we were like, this is a death trap. So we were like, oh, next year you're not tall enough. Next year you'll be tall enough.
We had to pull
So we pulled that.
White lie.
But yeah, so anyway, it's a great way to introduce kids if this is their very first theme park experience.
Right, get them used to the kind of environment it is, and like, that you see all these things in the same spot. And,
right. And the attractions, because it's kind of like that carnival style, they're all close to each other, so you can go from like one to the next very easily. This, I didn't mention this before, but I probably should have, is located up north near us. It's in, I'd say... It's about, like I said in the beginning of the video, an hour from us. They call it Philadelphia. I wouldn't say it was necessarily Philly area, but that's what they say. So if you're from this area, you're from like the Northeast, it's easy for you to get to. They have good merch. So obviously they have Spirit jerseys for adults. They also have them for kids.
Right.
They have
a lot of toys and stuff. A lot of toys,
mugs, magnets, backpacks, everything. Really great. And they have holiday offerings. They have like a Halloween and a holiday offering as well. So I guess they are open during the colder months of the year. Yeah. And when I figure out what the holiday offerings actually are, I'll put them right here so you can see them. That's all I had on my notes. Yeah.
No, I mean, overall... Like we said before, I mean, it wasn't, like, perfect because we're spoiled from Disney, but it was good to kind of see something different, and find out what the unexpected is. So, and the kids had a great time.
And the kids had a great time, and that's all that matters.
Right.
And it was nice to have it so close.
Exactly, that too.
And to give us an experience outside of Disney.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us for this video. I hope that you learned something about Sesame Place. Hopefully we didn't turn you off from it. If you watch the footage in the beginning, you'll see it is really fun.
Yeah.
It's very cute. But if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. It lets us know that you are excited about this content and you want to see more. If you want to watch more of our adventures or see more from us, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. That way you know every time that we post a video.
Yeah.
Say your favorite thing that you want people to do.
Suggestions. And if you have any suggestions on what kind of places we should go visit or things you want us to do next, say something in the comments or shoot us a DM on any of our social media, and we'll see about going ahead and doing that.
Yeah, we'll see about going ahead and doing that.
I don't know what that was. Where am I from?
Going ahead
we're
and doing
going to
that.
see about going ahead and doing that. Is what we're going to do.
All right, y'all.
All right, y'all. You hear? Come back soon, y'all. You hear?
What is it? Come back now. You hear? Oh, yeah. And
Keep on wishing.